Here.
Alderman Kotar,
Here.
Alderwoman Martin, Alderwoman Boyd,
Here.
Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Middlebrook, present. Chairman Boyd,
Present.
5 present, you have quorum.
Okay. First board bill up is Board Bill 242, sponsored by myself. If Kent Flake would take the seat. This is the 2020 50/50 sidewalk St. Louis Works program bill.
Okay.
Kent, go ahead and walk us through this.
Well, good morning. Thank you guys for having me. This is our annual St. Louis Works Board bill. Typically, it's $100,000 plus or minus that goes to 28 wards for paving, 50/50 sidewalks, and any other right-of-way improvements. The real meat and potatoes, if you have a copy of the budget, which you should have. If you look, first column is 510, go down to 5652. There's 1.184 million there. That's for 50/50. The second column for 511, 5638. That's a new number that's not been there before, but with the camera maintenance that came to be over the last couple of years, most people decided to do that out of their St. Louis Works budget. So I included it in the St. Louis Works budget so it saves us a transfer and stuff later. And the third meat and potato item is 514 under 5252, $1.6 million for paving. That comes out to be $103,000 this year per ward, which is up from $96,000 last year. If you look at the very bottom right, last year it was 5.3 million. We're up to 5.5 million this year. So that extra $200,000 went into that camera fund, and the rest went to the 514 pavement. As usual, well, not as usual. This year we're gonna try something a little different as far as getting those budgets and everything figured out. Last few years we waited until like almost April, I think, before we had our capital / St. Louis Works meetings to figure out what we wanted to pave that current year. I'm gonna send a letter out this week. Myself, Zach, and our paving foreman is gonna be on that letter. And anything that we can get solidified sooner than that date, we're gonna start trying to get that solidified before we actually start paving, so at least we have kind of a game plan from the get-go this year. I had to bring it with me. We also have a lot of residuals from previous years that Alderman did not choose to pave or do sidewalks or this. And I'd like to get rid of some of those residuals because I'm tired of seeing them. And that money needs to be spent. It needs to be spent on roads, sidewalks, etc. And that way I don't have to keep track of you guys' balances. So that's really the meat and potatoes of it. Like I said, it's up a little bit from last year, which is good. We need to keep that going in a positive direction. And that's about all I got. Any questions?
Okay. Alderwoman Murphy.
When you said you're going to send us some stuff sooner, you mean the recommendations that you think we need to pave?
I'm gonna send two things. It's gonna be the recommendations that I have, and I'm gonna offer my staff and myself and anybody I can the opportunity to ride along with whoever we need to do a ride along with.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times certain aldermen have a certain area they're concerned about, but they're not really sure which streets are good candidates for paving. Between myself, Zach Fortune, James Roby, our paving guy, we can definitely lead people in the right direction.
Okay.
And get that all figured out ahead of time. Okay. And because typically, you guys kind of know how I propose streets. I propose the worst streets, typically. Doesn't mean anybody lives on them. And if nobody lives on them, it's probably not a very good reason to pave it. And that's kind of the way we've always went through this. So,
Or just a time, do you ever just think, well, you know, this 100 block of whatever hasn't been paved for 10 years, so you put it on there, kind of thing?
the way I do the paving proposals currently last couple years I've done is I've pulled CSB information.
Okay,
So if we've got 5 potholes on a block, I typically put that on the paving
Okay.
proposal list. Once again, it doesn't mean anything, because you have a constituent that just likes to call CSB
Yes.
every day.
yes,
Well, their block gets on the paving list, which isn't fair to the next guy who actually has 50 potholes on his block
yeah.
that haven't been reported,
Right,
so.
right. And then, okay, then my last question, I'm sure I'm done, oh, and are we still trying to coordinate with Spire and everybody? Cause my streets are just completely dug up. You know, there's metal plates everywhere.
Yep, absolutely we are. Out of about 60 or 70 streets we had on our paving list last year, we have about 20 of those on hold. Because when I send our list, which that's kind of the problem with doing all this stuff in April and going paving in May, is they've looked at my proposals, they know or my proposals are based on where they're not gonna be.
Right.
But whenever I get something that's not on my proposal list, then I gotta go work with Spire to figure out if they're going to go there or
Do
not.
it, okay.
And out of the 60 or 70 streets we had last year, there's about 15 of them on hold because Spire,
Right,
we're digging holes
okay,
on.
okay. That's all, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Cote.
No questions.
Alderwoman Boyd,
No question.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
No questions.
Okay. Kent, now last year, some of us aldermen didn't get any paving done, right? And that's because of the flood and all of that. Will we be the first ones on the list as far as the wards to start the paving this year? And what, are we gonna actually start paving in May or April? Explain how the program's gonna work this year.
And the goal at this moment, depending on weather, the goal at this moment is to pave everything that you guys had on the list last year that was incomplete. We're gonna knock that out first thing. The goal is to do that starting May 1st. If we get good weather, April 15th, I wanna be there April 15th. So the goal is to start off knocking everything I owe everybody, which isn't a whole lot. It's 30 alleys and about a dozen streets, maybe 20 streets, depending on the Spire holes. Is knock all that out first. By that time, we should be complete with everything we know by the end of April, or not the end of April, the end of May.
Okay.
And then we're gonna work from there. So anything we have in the hopper, anything that was in the queue, we're gonna knock out of the box first thing.
Okay, hopefully we won't have flood again, because I got picked on because some alleys and streets didn't get paved, and I promised them that they would be paved.
Well, there's been some talk about some other ways we can handle flood. We've got other departments that when it's flooding, they're not doing, all they're doing kind of the normal stuff. And we can bring some of their forces in, so we can continue our paving program, since we, got beat up pretty hard this last year for not completing all our paving, which is, I believe, the first time we've ever not completed it, so. So yeah, we're definitely gonna figure out a way to work around that this year.
Okay. All right, Alderman Bosley, you weren't, at the table. Did you have any questions about the 50-50 Assembly Sports Bill?
No.
Okay. Since it's my bill, I'm gonna move that we pass Board Bill 242 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Second,
Been moved and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Murphy,
aye.
Alderman Kotor,
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin, Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Chairman Boyd.
Aye.
6 ayes votes.
Okay, we're gonna back up to item 3 on the order of business. Let's please excuse the Alderwoman from the 11th Ward, Sarah Martin, due to necessary absence. I'll entertain a motion on approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from the February 4th, 2020 Streets Committee meeting.
Second,
Been moved and second. Hearing no objections, previous roll, the minutes are approved. The next board bill up is Board Bill 196, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro.
196, okay.
I'm sorry, 190.
No, it's 196.
We have 190 as
We got
well,
both.
so we'll start with 190.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, 190. So there's two of them there.
There's
I just
two,
couldn't
yeah.
find it in stat, I'm sorry. So 190 is gonna be the stop sign on January. there's like 3 spots left in the 23rd ward that don't have a stop
I was
sign.
gonna say,
Just kidding. There might be 4. No, so what happens is, if there's an accident or something on the street, now this one is real close to St. Joan of Arc, so I get calls from all the parents.
right,
The stop signs help in the sense that if we make them stop every 20 feet, it does slow them down a little. And, I mean, if anybody, any of the aldermen in this room know, ignore it and have somebody get hit, and then it's your fault. So, so anyway, I would just ask that on Board Bill 190, you would approve my stop sign, and I have another one after that where a guy was killed.
Okay, let's see if there are any questions from the committee. Alderman Murphy. Alderman Murphy.
no, I'm sorry, no
Okay.
questions.
Alderman Coulter.
No questions.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Do you have any place left that doesn't have stop signs?
So I said there's 4, so I might be back here again. No, these are, like I said, this one's by a school, and the next one is somebody got hit and killed, so.
No question.
And they want stop signs, speed humps, a police officer. And to be honest with you, the stop signs might slow them down, I don't know if it helps, but, I still say if a policeman they start putting tickets out, that's really enforcement is gonna be the real answer. I don't even know if Marlboro still even has a police department, but I guarantee you, whenever I go down, through Marlboro down Chippewa, I go really slow, because they used to pull you over for doing about a half a mile over the speed limit. So I
Yeah.
couldn't even swear
Sorry.
to, that they even have a police department, but I'm telling you, they enforced it enough
Yeah.
that, I go really slow. But anyway, so
Okay.
I would appreciate your approval of this.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions.
Alderman Middlebrook.
No question.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 190.
Move that we adopt Board Bill 190 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection, previous roll, Board Bill 190 comes out of committee with due pass recommendation. Next Board Bill before us is Board Bill 196, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro.
And this is the one at Mardell and Macklin. This is actually where a guy got hit and killed. There's no real stop signs between Pernod and Chippewa. So this puts it kind of in the middle. There's still at least 4 more spots we could put stop signs on that street, just, but they want speed humps. I don't know if we can do them because the speed limit on that street's kind of high to start with, so I just would appreciate your approval on Board Bill 196.
Okay, Alderman Murphy.
No questions.
Alderman Coulter.
No questions.
Alderman Boyd.
No question.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions.
Alderman Middlebrook. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 196.
Move that we adopt Board Bill 196 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection, previous roll, Board Bill 196 come out of committee with due pass recommendation. Next Board Bill before us is Board Bill 232, sponsored by Alderman Ryan. Go ahead, Alderman.
Good morning. This board bill is a no commercial vehicle ordinance on a 3-block stretch of a residential street, West Park, which is surrounded by a lot of light industry. It's just east of Hampton. There's a 3-block stretch down West Park that is basically entirely residential as soon as you get off of Hampton. And I've gotten a lot of complaints from residents that there are, 18-wheelers coming down this residential street as a cut-through. They've requested this. I've looked at the map. I've walked the length of the area that this ordinance would cover, and I do believe it's appropriate. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, Alderwoman Murphy.
I think all what this entails is that they put up a sign that says commercial vehicles that I have all over my ward and no one pays attention
I was
to.
gonna say that.
Now,
So-
enforcement of it may be a different issue
Well, right, maybe
entirely.
when we get
Yeah.
a police force up to contingency, we can enforce some of those. Because I have the same problem and there's a big sign that says commercial vehicles prohibited.
Absolutely.
But anyway, good luck with this. No
Thank you.
questions.
Okay, Alderman Coulter.
No questions, I just comment, I've added a number of these with little effect. I know the problem I experience is often if there's highway ramps closed, then they get their GPSs reroute them and they put the trucks on residential streets.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck.
Okay, Alderman Boyd.
Dead on.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions.
Alderman Middlebrook.
No questions.
Okay, I would entertain a motion on Board Bill 232.
I move that we adopt Board Bill 232 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Been moved and second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 232 comes out of committee with due pass recommendation.
Thank you.
I am going to step out, and Vice Chairman Kohler is going to take over the meeting from here.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Just a second, folks. I'm just gonna move the stacks since I've got mine organized. Okay. Who's here? 1 second, everybody. Get
Take your
organized.
time. They have coffee over there now.
Alderwoman Ingracia, you're recognized. What would you like to start with, the resolution or Board Bill 239?
Board Bill 239 would be great, thank you.
Okay, let's start with Board Bill 239. Alderwoman Ingracia, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Board Bill 239 updates the permitting process in the streets department for street and sidewalk blocking permits. And this will allow the streets department to implement and enforce a traffic control plan that is more thoughtful for accommodations for pedestrians and people with differing abilities. So if you are familiar with what a lot of other cities do when there are major construction projects, you'll see canopies set up so that people have access to walk or use a wheelchair or stroller underneath a canopy through a construction site. And instead of providing detours for folks who are not using cars, there will be provisions to provide access to them throughout the construction site. And I have a copy of the first policy that they will be using. If you would like to take a look at it. It's been worked on by the micro-mobility or the community mobility working group, which is an expanded version of the bike share working group that helped put forward the bike share ordinance. And also was reviewed and approved by David Newberger and Andrew Lackey in the Office on the Disabled.
Are you passing around the policy? Sorry.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
his mind is gone.
No, I'm reading this,
And I also have Jamie Wilson with Streets if you have specific questions that I'm not intelligent enough to answer.
Okay, well, let's start with questions from members of the committee. Unless do you have anything else, Alderwoman?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Alderwoman Murphy.
No, I don't have any questions. I would, except for Jamie perhaps, is all of this been clear with the streets department? And, you know, make sure we're all on the same page about how we're gonna do this? That would be my question.
Right, we are on the same page. The board bill you have in front of you reflects changes in our permit fees associated with blocking permits. So in general, our blocking permits generate about $500,000 a year in revenue, just the blocking, not actually excavation permits, but actually blocking sidewalks, curb lanes, or traffic lanes. We took a look at where our resources go on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of times they are on these primary arterials in the downtown, given their higher volume, higher impact areas. The thought behind this is we haven't looked at our permit fees, revisited our permit fees and what we're charging for about 10 years. So the thought here was to start off with not increasing everything, but starting with, we're gonna leave our permit fees the way they are, and then we're gonna increase them on the higher impact areas that I described, where we find our resources are being pulled more times than not. So on the arterials and in the downtown area, bounded generally by Jefferson, Washington, the river, and Shoto, we're gonna increase those fees by about 75%. Spent a lot of time looking at different cities. It's not a new concept whatsoever, just kind of customize it to St. Louis. I saw some heftier fees, more than double the fees in these higher impact areas versus the lower impact areas in other cities. We went with probably more conservative. We left our permit fees the way they are and then went with a 75% increase for those higher areas. This, of course, is not a money grab or anything. This is trying to put permit fees that are more representable about what's going on the street as far as impact, and also being able to afford staff to actually enforce this. We're going to be asking for, we have asked for 2 additional inspectors. We currently have 9 inspectors in our table of organization for the street department to cover the entire city. So at any time, they're carrying a couple hundred different permits to keep track of. So we're gonna get a couple more permit inspectors, and we're also gonna get a plan examiner to help us with what the Alderman was saying, look at traffic control even more closely. Not a new concept as far as what we expect from these, but we're gonna have someone dedicated to both examining what each contractor puts in for their permit, their associated traffic control plan, and also to effectively negotiate with the contractor as far as what they're proposing and what we expect to see. So we'll have some expectations. You see a draft of what kind of things that we're worried about and concepts as far as mobility around work zones, both for users of every mode of transportation. So hopefully with someone dedicated to this, we can increase our level of detail in our reviews with that additional personnel.
Thank you. No
Sure.
more questions.
All right. Alderwoman Camboy.
No question.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
No questions.
All right, I've got a few. And I'm sorry if I missed this at the beginning. So increasing the, I guess, blocking fee permits, what do we anticipate that will generate annually?
So it's a little hard to pull the data from our existing database, but I did a high-level poll of what our permits were in the downtown west and downtown.
Yeah.
I believe.
I'm sorry, I don't wanna interrupt, but were you provided with copies of the fiscal note that is supposed to be with this?
No.
Okay, it was turned in with the legislation when it was introduced, and I apologize, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we did work closely with Barb Burkett in the city attorney's office to make sure that we are generating the amount of fees that will cost to implement and enforce the program.
Because we're talking 2 additional inspectors and a plan reviewer, right? So 3 people.
So I looked at, of the 500,000 citywide that we have for blocking permits, I looked at the downtown and downtown west neighborhoods where we issued just blocking permits as a percentage of that 500,000 citywide. About 255,000 were from the downtown west out of that 500. And if we increase the blocking fees as proposed in the board bill, we generate over $200,000 in additional revenue. And if you look at what the 2 inspectors and the plan examiner make, including payroll additives, it's 190-something thousand. So it is under what we're projecting, and I'll note that I only looked at the downtown west and downtown areas, so I would anticipate even greater revenue if the arterials, which are proposed in here, are included in those extra fees. I couldn't isolate the arterials as far as the estimate, but once I was over for the downtown west, I was comfortable with those numbers.
That answers that question, thank you. So, I mean, this is something I get a lot of complaints about, as you know, Jamie and Christine, obviously you're aware as well. So talk to me, like, just for example, like the project, that little hotel on the corner of Olive and, what is that, 4th Street? No, that's Olive and Broadway, that caused all sorts of headaches. So had this been in place, would we have required, like, keep the sidewalks open, walkways there? How do we envision this being implemented for existing, for new construction and existing buildings in the core of downtown?
That may be an atypical example, because at any one point, I think they were proposing to be done in a month or so.
Yeah.
So, there's a whole slew of things that were a possibility before and are even greater possibility now with this policy. So, again, that was a bad one where they anticipate being done, then another 6-month extension, another 6-month extension. So there's certain things I would ask a contractor to do. There's not gonna be one answer fits all here, cookie cutter thing. I probably wouldn't make somebody that's gonna only have a construction zone up for a day or two to build something. If I see something that's going to be like that
Long-term.
site where it's 2 solid years of, getting through that area, that is where we look at doing something because, while we want to be reasonable as far as mobility around a work zone, we also be reasonable as far as what we're asking folks to do when they come in and redevelop some of these areas. So, with that plan exam, we're gonna be able to look and really talk with the contractors, what they're proposing, what their time frame is. A lot of times they come in and ask for things that would be great if they get it, but there also are other ways of doing things, from their end. So this is kind of a pushback of sorts.
Yeah.
In a friendly way, a pushback of sorts. Yeah, I see what you guys want. Let's talk about what we can really deal with, or what we can deal with on the street here and what we would tolerate as a city. Not just letting everybody come in and do what they want to, but working with them. Again, it's not an animosity thing, but it's also gonna be not a given that you come in and, just because you ask for the sidewalk, you get the sidewalk. Is kind of I think that actually is worded in here. It's not just, I have the dollars right here, give me the sidewalk. It's, well, let's talk about why you need the sidewalk, and if you do need the sidewalk, this is what it's gonna cost. So that's our approach.
Okay. Questions from anyone else in the committee? No? Okay. At the request of the chairman, look, I'm supportive of this, and I don't think it's gonna be an issue getting it out of committee, but at the request of the chairman, I'm gonna hold it for today, because I think he had some follow-up questions for the sponsor and for Jamie. But I think this sounds like a good policy, and will hopefully alleviate a lot of our current calls and emails that we get, especially in the downtown and downtown west
They do
area.
get a lot.
So we're gonna hold it, and we got time to get this thing out of committee and get it passed, don't we? How many weeks do we have left?
We don't have much time.
No.
Okay, well, we'll talk to him, we'll get it done, because I think this is I think it's a good bill. Alderwoman, resolution 233.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked the clerk to get some copies of the resolution. There's not one in this stack. If I could,
This,
does everybody have a copy of the resolution?
one- it's a
I
one-pager,
did, yeah, the
right?
one page.
yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that all of you had it in front of you. So this is resolution 233, as I mentioned. A few minutes ago, we started with the bike share working group a couple of years ago, and they helped us put forth the bike share ordinance that was passed. Does everybody have one? Okay. And we've continued to work together. Obviously, things changed quickly from bikes to scooters. We're talking about some other modes of transportation now, and so we'd like to change the bike share working group and sort of make it somewhat official as an entity that the city of St. Louis is able to rely on for advice. And so this creates the St. Louis Community Mobility Committee to help provide advice to the city for non-vehicular transportation. Thank you. Appreciate it.
okay.
And I'm happy to take questions.
Before we get into questions, do you have, do these bylaws already exist, referenced in Exhibit A?
Yeah, they were turned in with the resolution.
Okay,
The bylaws, go ahead, sorry.
do they kind of lay out, I see we've got a committee of between 11 and 31. Do the bylaws sort of speak more to, I mean, are these from various groups, or what do the bylaws say
Sure.
generally?
Generally speaking, it's just a first document to help the committee self-regulate and be able to have a process to add members. And the current makeup is a lot of professionals that are in this area. It also includes the original target neighborhoods from the bike share working group. That's the West End neighborhood, Wells, Goodfellow, Kings Highway West, the Ville and Greaterville, Jeff Vanderloo, the Choice neighborhoods. I think that's Carr Square and Old North and St. Louis Place, and then Hyde Park, Dutchtown, Graveway, Marine Villa, and Graveway Park. So there are citizen representatives from all over the city that are part of the working group.
Okay, reading this, so Alderwoman, it doesn't appear that these members are subject to the advice and consent of the board, are they?
No, it's under a resolution and not codified because it's not a requirement that they advise the streets department or any entity. It could be East West Gateway, GRG. It just sort of formalizes the fact that they do exist and they are offering helpful input to the city. And so to have it in resolution form just gives them some more validity.
Okay, so let's take questions from members of the committee. Alderwoman Murphy.
So this committee would just offer advice, it wouldn't be, you gotta do it this way, or,
Right.
okay. And then how is this related to what, our former colleague, Mr. Ogilvy does out of the mayor's office that,
He's part of the working group, so
so
it's in
this is
line.
not a redundant thing? I thought we already had something like this in place through Mr. Ogilvy.
Well, it's not through Mr. Ogilvy, it already existed, but
Right.
so this is the same group.
Okay, okay. No more questions.
All right, Alderwoman Boyd.
So, what I'm hearing, they don't have any power technically,
Right.
so they're more on the advisory piece.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, that's what I was understanding, okay.
And that's why
All right, Alderwoman Boyd, any other questions?
No, I'm
All right.
sorry.
Alderman Bosley.
Is there any way, I guess, during the coming years or time as things become consistent, that we get a list of the individuals who are involved within each area?
I can get that for you probably as quickly as tomorrow.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Do you know who's involved from the Hyde Park area?
Link, okay, you know, come up, sorry.
Oh.
If you say something, you have to say who you are,
Come on
yeah.
up and let us know who you are and who you represent. Go ahead.
Taylor March, Policy Director with TrailNet. The representative from Hyde Park is Link STL. It's a place-based neighborhood organization, and Doug Eller is the person who attends, and I think sometimes he has somebody else from Link STL with him as well.
All right, cool, cool. I mean, the reason I asked is, so with things like this, even though certain organizations don't have power, I mean, we all know that, contingent upon how important issues arise within the city, certain organizations can have,
Impact.
a lot of impact based on the influence they've had, getting to whatever point that we are headed towards before we get to whatever issue that we're working on. So, is there at any point that this organization is supposed to, I mean, of course we know they're not supposed to report, but send out a list like yearly, or do we get any newsletters? Is there any formal way that we know when there is a change in board members or membership at all?
Yeah, I would be happy to make sure that happens. I would be happy to add it to the resolution if it makes you more comfortable.
No, you don't have to add. I'm just asking. It's really
Yeah,
like,
no,
you
absolutely, and
bring it
we're
to the
working over
forefront,
the
just
next
asking.
few months. The focus of the working group is going to be engagement and kind of, since we are being more formalized, making sure that elected officials and community members know that we exist, because we're always looking for new members as well.
Well,
Do you want to just say who, for the record, who you are and who you're with?
Yeah, I think I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, I missed it. No,
Taylor
you're
March,
good.
Policy
Sorry.
Director.
I apologize.
That's all right.
You moving faster.
And we
Yeah.
are sitting on the bike share working group, citizen advisory mobility committee
Okay.
Currently, so.
So I was just asking, and that's not anything that I require to support the resolution. I was just asking,
Okay,
just general questions, inquiring. But I do support the resolution.
thank you.
Any other questions, Alderman?
No, sir.
I guess my question would be, why between 11 and 31? 31 seems like a really big number, for an unwieldy number.
Excuse me.
I don't necessarily, I mean, we've had probably 20 or more people at the table at meetings, and it's always handled well, and it provides a wide variety of perspective.
Okay. All right. Alderwoman, at the request of the chairman, I'm going to hold this. I know he has some questions for you, I believe. If you could get with him, and then we'll schedule time to get this thing voted out, I'll certainly support it.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else not on the committee that has a bill or doesn't know? Okay,
Okay.
so let's go with Alderwoman Middlebrook. It looks like you've got two pieces of legislation here. Go ahead if you want to take the hot seat. Yeah, we have both of them. Why don't you go ahead and start us with Board Bill 235, Alderwoman.
Okay, good morning. So Board Bill 235 is a, street vacation. And it is from Tilly to Frederick to New B, and this is in the Baden area. And this is basically because there is a lot of, flooding over there. So it's to reduce sewage, back up on private property and street flooding, and that's essentially it.
Okay, is anybody here from MSD that wants to speak on this? Okay, you want to come on up and just tell us generally about this, and then we'll go through questions? Let us know who you are. We already know you're with MSD.
I'm Jared Barr, I'm with the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. And so in the Baden area, we have two existing stormwater detention facilities which have the purpose of reducing overland flooding and wet weather surcharging of the sewer system in the area. And we acquired in that area over the last decade or so more property that we want to expand those basins. We're committing about $16 million to improving the sewer system in the Baden area by expanding these basins and constructing some sewers which will take the, so in the city of St. Louis, you guys may be aware, is a combined sewer where the same sewer shares both stormwater and sanitary sewage from people's homes. And we're wanting to separate the street flow, so the public stormwater from the existing system, route it through these detention basins to delay their impact on the sewers and allow for an increased level of service. And so you guys have already seen a closure on part of Frederick Street, which is part of this project. You have two board bills here today, one on Gilmore and then this one on Tilly with an alleyway. And so that'll allow us the greater opportunity to utilize that area and provide a greater level of service. We're expecting about 2,500 properties to benefit in the area from this bill.
Okay, great. Let's take questions from the committee. Alderwoman Murphy.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Boyd.
No questions.
Alderman Bosley.
So I don't have any questions particularly about, Alderwoman Middlebrook's bill. What exactly do you do in MSD, though? I apologize.
Okay. I'm a civil engineer and a project manager, and so I manage these design projects through the design to the bidding phase, and then we release that to our construction management.
Okay, so we do have a number of these happening in the third ward also. As a question, because I have had individuals also, north and south, that are dealing with the flooding issues. How far are you all into dealing with the, I guess, because I know you all have put more infrastructure underground on the south, correct?
It depends on the particular area. In the city of St. Louis, where the majority of our work is actually focused in the Wells Goodfellow neighborhood, the Baden neighborhood, and we've got some combined sewer relief jobs which are not these large regional flooding issues. In parts of what we call our Lee May service area and in the county where that's separated flows, there's other opportunities, and it's a different performance metric. So here we're dealing with flooding, there we're dealing with sanitary sewer overflows, and so we use larger conveyance pipes rather than these detention areas, because that's just a more appropriate use of public funds in terms of efficiency there.
Right, so I mean, like, let's say an area, so I just had a conversation with a elderly lady last night, and every time it rains, and I forgot, what part of the South Side she is from, she is upset about, the flooding that happens, and it rains, and her sewers flood, she gets water in her basement, and she's upset with the city about that. The reason I'm asking these questions is because it'd be good to just have it on record on exactly kind of what we are trying to do versus kind of individuals feeling like nothing is being done. I know there is an effort to try to deal with these things right now, and some of the general public really doesn't understand how intricate it is and how that process really goes, even dealing with the water basins versus going underground, which I know those are two totally different jobs, and they take, different times. And you may not be an engineer, like you said, that, I think you said you only deal with like the water basins, right?
In this particular instance. So I think what I'm hearing is there's certainly concerns among the customers within the city of St. Louis and other areas. And they suffer from building backups, and we recognize that there are areas that do that. There's two things that I guess would come to my mind. Is one is, it depends on the level of service, just like you couldn't build, a road large enough to take all the traffic. There's a level of service that we're able to provide. But then the second thing is, we need to, we're a public agency, we need to budget things, we're limited on our capital projects. The best thing for your constituents would be to have them call in when there is an issue, and call in frequently so that we're aware of them. And those, we will come out and respond to those calls. We identify projects, they get categorized by priority based on, is it structure flooding, is it yard flooding, and then those projects get budgeted, and then they go through our natural budget process, and as capital funds are available, we take the highest priority projects, which are based on that type of flooding. If it's structure flooding, obviously that's higher category than if someone gets yard ponding, and so that's what I would recommend, is just to have them call in every time they experience an issue.
Understood, which, she definitely explained she did. And aside from, I know this is an ongoing issue, but with the funding that I think we have acquired over the last few years, is it like $2 billion?
No, so in the city of St. Louis, we have committed to spend $230 million, and we've budgeted a lot of that work already. A large part of it's in the Harlem and the Baden watersheds of the city of St. Louis, which have been impacted the most over the last 100 years since development, after 50 years really after World War II is where it really started to develop. And then we have a couple other projects that are identified in the Hill area and in South City that we're spending, that almost exhausts that $230 million, which is currently in our rate cycles. After that, there's it's hard to predict what that funding level will be beyond the next couple rate cycles.
Understood. Well, I appreciate the information. Once again, I'm just asking just for general information, so people who do ask and want to inquire, we can at least reference some of these videos. Appreciate the work that you do. I know it's extremely important. Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Jared, for that explanation. Any other questions regarding Board Bill 235 from the committee? All right, hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion on Board Bill 235.
I entertain a motion to approve Board Bill 235.
Second, previous roll.
Object to previous roll. Let's do a new roll call since the chairman's not here. There's a motion from the Alderman from the 27th, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderman Kotar.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Chairman Boyd. 5 aye votes.
All right, Board Bill 235 is passed out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Alderwoman Middlebrook, you're recognized on Board Bill 236.
Okay, so Board Bill 236 is somewhat the same. It's to vacate a portion of Gilmore between Union Pacific and Schweitzer, and this is again to reduce sewage backup on private property and street flooding.
Okay. Questions from members of this
No
committee?
questions,
Alderwoman
thank
Murphy,
you.
no questions. Alderwoman Boyd?
No question.
Alderman Bosley?
No questions.
No questions. All right, Chair, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 236.
I move we pass Board Bill 236 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by it's been moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd. Hearing no objection to previous rule, Board Bill 236 is passed out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Okay, we got a couple more here from members that have asked for their bills to be heard. Alderman Moore's bill. Is anyone here from True Grace Baptist Church? Okay. We're gonna go ahead, I was asked that we hear this bill by the chairman, so let's go ahead and hear this and pass it out of committee, and then if we need to hold it after that, we can. I'll go ahead and just handle this. This is Alderman Moore's bill. This is vacating. Kent, you're moving. Do you have anything to add on this? Oh, I thought you had something. Okay. This is to vacate an alley behind True Grace Baptist Church. I guess for some construction they're doing. Seeing no one's here to object to it, does anyone on the committee have any questions?
When we say vacate the alley, that means we're talking about permanently or temporarily while something's being done? And if it's permanent, then my question would be, since somebody's here from streets, how do the refuge trucks handle when we vacate a whole alley? You know, because I'm not familiar with that particular area.
Yeah, we don't have a map
I
in
know.
front of us.
Rollouts or.
So, does anyone have the map? Does Streets have the map for this one? Sharita, would they have turned in a map when they have submitted this vacation? You know, let's go ahead and hold this, because I think we do need to at least see the map and hear something from somebody. So we're gonna hold Board Bill 115. All right, I know I have a bill that I can speak intelligently to. Board Bill 224, which is an alley vacation in my ward. I can
There you
answer the
go.
Alderman from the 13th question.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is to vacate an alley between Olive and Locust, 7th and 8th. So to put it in perspective, does everyone know where the new St. Louis Hotel is? Hotel St. Louis, right on Olive Street there. Immediately to the west of the hotel, there is a very small alley, and then you have the chemical building. And there are no services in that alley. Well, there's some AT&T lines that have to get dealt with, but there's no city services in there. There's no trash pickup or anything. It's a small alley. And the plan at this point is to redevelop the chemical building as the second phase of the Hotel St. Louis, connect the buildings they're already connected underground, but connect them at street level through that alley. This has been, the surrounding property owners have been consulted and signed off on this. Most notably, to the northern end of the alley is the Lashley Bear Law Firm. They have a kind of a cool old building there. They've been involved and are supportive of this. So yeah, this will make it possible to blow out and expand that alley at the Hotel St. Louis and add, basically double the size of that hotel, which we've already approved the incentives on that project last session. I'm happy to answer any questions. Alderwoman Murphy.
No, you did handle that very intelligently, like you said, so I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Boyd.
No questions.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
No questions.
All right, no more questions. I'll go ahead and make a motion to pass Board Bill 224 with a due pass recommendation.
Second, previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 224 is passed out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Okay, let's see, the remaining items, I don't think the aldermen or women are here to speak on, so we will go ahead and hold these.
Okay.
Any other business for the committee? I don't see anything on the agenda. Hearing none, the Streets, Traffic, and Refuse Committee is adjourned. Boom.
These are all whole. Okay.
I would anticipate everybody, since I know Ingracia's bill will wanna get out, we're gonna probably have to have a meeting after we talk to Jeffrey, either on like a Friday morning real quick, or, I don't know. I mean, because we really only have